I'm Klaudia Archimowicz and we are at Venture Cafe Warsaw today. Ahmad, thank you very much for inviting us here. It's an amazing place. And first question I have to you is actually about something I've noticed recently on LinkedIn and Facebook, something called #NewInTown.
Yes.
Could you please tell us more about that?
Of course. Thank you very much for, first of all, having me. So the whole idea of New in Town is, I would say, unlike many other cities like London or New York, is whenever everybody comes to Warsaw, they have this wow effect. Because they have this idea of East Block back in like 30 years ago. And when they come over here, then I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But the next problem is always is that, so where should I start? Who should I meet and what should I do in order to somehow be a part of the ecosystem? So we try to have one unique event every week on Thursdays as a part of Thursday gathering that is happening right here in Venture Cafe. That would be, first of all, by example. We bring people that used to be an expat, but now they are part of the ecosystem to share their journey. And at the same time, somehow having a little bit of an overview of how the innovation system and the startup ecosystem are happening, and how you as a person that is just coming to Warsaw for the first time can somehow find your way and literally be a part of the ecosystem.
Okay.
One thing I can correct it if you want me to be a little bit more specific. It's not about that you would be British or you would be American. Even if you're from, let's just say, corporate part of Warsaw, new in town is that you're new into the innovation part. Just wanted to make sure that people would understand that we're only talking about people that are the new in the innovation part of the town.
And what about this amazing place?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting place. I would say a very unique idea. That it's an innovation campus. Innovation campus is a very, let's just say, ambitious idea that is being sponsored by Cambridge Innovation Center. That they have amazing locations all around the world. We have one of the biggest and most active right now happening from Warsaw. And as I basically give you a tour a little bit before,
thank you for that.
it is really exceptional. I totally recommend people to come over and see it. But just to give you a bit more information about it, so we have a place that is the district hall, that is an ad hoc co-working space. Anytime anybody can come over, just have a small interview, meeting, and it's going to be totally free of charge. Then after that, we have a proper co-working space that will give you some quiet space and let's just say everything you need in order to do your work. We have some exclusive club called the Trend House that is for people who really want to have some exclusive atmosphere around themselves. And at the same time, we're organizing many different activities that I would say if you are up to innovation, you always find something for yourself. Our flagship event is the Thursday gathering. You can imagine this on Thursdays. That is somehow bringing the whole innovation ecosystem together. Aside from that, we have another activity that is called Innovation Bridge. So once a month, we are basically just connecting the Warsaw ecosystem to one new ecosystem. Toronto, Rotterdam, Dublin, London, all those ecosystems.
What city is the next one?
Very good question, because we just finished the Rotterdam. And I'm usually the person who is also supporting the whole thing, but I have to ask Eva just to give you the update. And I live my life based on my Google Calendar, so
we're going to wait for the update.
If you would allow me to look at my phone, then I will tell you everything up all the way to the February 2021.
Yeah, okay. And you are also involved in the startup grind. Could you please tell us more about your journey there?
Of course. So I would say I'm privileged to be a director of a startup grind, because startup grind is a bit more than a role. I would say, if it's not going to be too cheesy, it is a mindset. Because we're the world's biggest community of entrepreneurs globally, with more than 3 million people.
Wow, okay.
And we have more than 125 countries with 600 chapters. So imagine in some countries like US, we have multiple chapters. And what we do is that we really connect the ecosystem. Like, if I want to put one title for myself, is that I always really want to call myself an ecosystem enabler. So what we usually have as the directors of a startup grind is that we have to be people who connect people together. We always also believe that we have to give first, and that is the attitude. And as you can imagine also, it goes very well with my activities also when it comes to the Venture Cafe. Because as I showed you, like when you're around here, like nobody even checks your ID. So you can basically be as free as you want.
I was surprised because I thought I'm going to be checked at the
Yeah.
reception.
We are measuring all the things, especially due to COVID. So your temperature is being checked. There are disinfections everywhere just to make sure people are going to be safe. But aside from that, we try to give people as much freedom as possible. And we have the same thing in a startup grind. So we have lots of activities, including we have a monthly event that, unlike other events, they are not based on what you are doing, is based on who you are.
Okay.
So we talk about the entrepreneur's journey. I would say one thing that makes a lot of negative things is glamorizing too much entrepreneurship. So there is pain, and we really try to tap into that part. We bring one entrepreneur every month and then interview them. We have a global startup acceleration program that I would say is one of the best acceleration programs globally. We are literally in the process of opening a new program that is mainly related to students. And you can imagine when you have such a big ecosystem, wherever you want to go, we have a chapter director that is going to support you. So it's a perfect platform for global expansion. One thing I can also give to your audience is that as a director, I can provide a 3-month free acceleration program. They can cancel at any time, so they can check the quality, what they can have, because our partners and sponsors are the biggest VCs, accelerators, and let's just say corporate partners. And we also have a massive free package for startups. So they can look at it for 3 months, see if it's going to really fit what they are doing, and then make their decision for the rest of the road.
Okay. And what would you call is your biggest project right now? What are you
biggest
mostly
project-
focused on right now?
I mean, I don't know if your viewers know, but there's this thing called COVID that happened.
Really?
Yes.
Never heard of that.
First, I also thought it's a Chinese hoax, but then I did my research and I found out that no, apparently it does exist. So due to that, let's just say most of my activities somehow had a different approach to that. So frankly speaking, most of these activities I'm mentioning are somehow for expanding networks and somehow giving something to the ecosystem. But I'm after years of, I would say more than 10 years of mentoring the startups and being around startups, I even, let's just say, I helped the MIT Enterprise Forum to come to Central Europe. I helped some CVCs to open up their spaces here, but now it's my time to be on the ring. So I'm starting a hospitality startup that it's almost like now 4 months old.
Oh, okay.
So I would say this is the biggest project I'm working on it right now.
Cool.
And stay tuned because I'm also doing a very interesting creative project that hopefully is going to have a big splash, but for now it's very hush-hush.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And you already mentioned COVID. I didn't want to talk about that, of course,
Yes.
but I have one question
It's
regarding
the
that.
big elephant in the room.
Yeah. So what is going on in the investing world right now? Because investors and accelerators, are they saving money and not investing in startups, or is still going on?
The world of VC is, or at least I would say was, very much untouched. You could not meet a VC by email, send them your pitch deck, and then they will invest a penny in your startup. You always had to meet people face to face, and then the rest would follow. What shocked VCs more than the whole COVID itself was the fact that I cannot meet my startup. And it's not even that much about do I have money or not. It's a matter of how can I invest in a startup that cannot be in the same room with me.
Yeah.
That was a very much, I would say, psychological damage that a lot of VCs are still struggling to understand. Second problem that is happening is that we have very wrong ideas of what venture capital and funds are doing. This is something that we have to first clear before continuing this question. Because if you are a fund that is being supported by a fund of fund or any other source of investment, you have obligation to do some investment in some specific time period. If you're an angel investor, you have X amount of money that you can only invest whenever you see fit.
Yeah.
So sometimes people misunderstand the statistics, because if there are 4 VCs are being closed by December, it doesn't specifically means that there is a lot of interesting startups. Maybe because the deadline of the fund that is supporting them is in December.
Yeah.
So that is a totally different story, that COVID or no COVID is going to somehow affect them, because they have to find a way to finish their investment regardless of the situation. But I would say, unfortunately, the real problem that people do not address with COVID is that if you really believe that also babies come from some storage, just like dropping it off the chimney, basically babies come from a different way. Also the same as food, the same as everything else. So by not going to work, we're not just having a problem by not spreading the disease. We are stopping people from generating values and products. So I really feel that the real damage of COVID is going to happen when those things that are not being produced either at all or not as fast as before are going to hit us very soon. And the same goes with, I would say, not the investment part, but rather the next round of funds want to do the next round of investment next time. So I would say startups have to really embrace themselves, but you also have to understand, especially if your audience are mainly in Europe, European funds are mainly connected to European investment. So if your country and let's just say your ecosystem is going to be active enough, you are going to receive the fund anyway, because it's going to basically be injected nationally or European-wise. And then all your VC should fix is that how post-COVID is going to affect their face-to-face interactions.
But do you think that the ratio they are talking about, that only 10% of the startups is actually having any potential to survive, does it drop because of the COVID, or it's the same level?
I would say the biggest problem in the European startup ecosystem is the youth. I have a very interesting analogy that Jack Ma said, and that was about the comparison between the Chinese ecosystem versus American ecosystem. He was saying that you have to take a look at the startup ecosystem as a jungle. When the old trees die, they make the soil more fertile. And then out of that, then the next trees grow faster and stronger. So the reality is that I totally agree that the current situation when it comes to the startup ecosystem would be affected by COVID. But the fact of having successful startups in Europe, by the fact of having older startups in Europe, one thing that bothers me more than COVID is exits and merger and acquisition in the startups in Europe. The more we see those things, money is always there. There is always another funny thing they say, money is only an issue in the absence of value. So as long as the startups are going to see some role models, as long as the startups are going to see some exits that have to come from corporations, I would say it can be the reverse. If you take a look at the real estate ecosystem, I would say it's close to dying. So what would you do? Either you have to acquire a startup that is more innovative, and that's an investment. So you don't always have to get it from the VCs and funds. So if a real estate company tried to start investing in startups and the other one would follow, I would say the COVID might hit corporations more than startups. Because if the corporations see themselves, either they have to acquire a startup or run out of business. I would say even if they're not doing, I encourage them to do that. So if they will literally go into that direction, you can easily understand that startups are going to have a huge collaboration, investment, merger and acquisition opportunity with corporations that might be even more interesting than going and knocking on the doors of the venture capitals.
And for the last question of today, could you please tell us about, let's say, top 3 startups in Europe we should follow right now?
It depends on in which stage of startups we're talking about.
Innovations, artificial intelligence, machine learning.
You're hitting close to heart by artificial intelligence. One thing about artificial intelligence is that I would say it doesn't really have boundaries at all. Like, one of the things that I totally recommend to anyone is to take a look at OpenAI. I mean, projects that they do, especially with the GPT-3, is off the charts. Like, I wouldn't even imagine that this is going to happen. And the exponential growth in AI, it really shows itself. Other than that, I would say right now, investing in AI and any AI-based ideas are finally really paying off. I mean, I don't really want to put an endorsement or something like that, but there is this whole trend of, let's just say, low-touch economy. Anything that somehow would help any sort of ecosystem to be able to stay in touch with the customers without the customers wanting to somehow be there. And I'm not saying that COVID is going to be here to stay, but generally speaking, I'm saying that people are getting used to these solutions, and the startups that enable those ideas are getting a huge momentum, and at the same time, a very fast growth. And I mean, I can still drop some names, but if you don't mind me, I didn't want to just put it as an endorsement platform.
Okay.
But I would say, because we're in Poland, I would say right now one of the startups that globally they show that Polish startups can go global and do some very interesting things. I would say Booksy right now is making a huge impact. The guys at Sunroof, I don't know if I can call them Polish, but at least they're being run by Poles. They're amazing. I mean, the fast growth and their competitiveness globally, it's something that I would say should be an example for other startups. But one of the things that people have to understand, Poland is not a back office. Poland might be one of the best places globally for NLP, natural language processing, for big data, for even, let's just say, big data processing. The ICM in Warsaw is running most of the weather forecast for the region. And this is a massive opportunity for a lot of people to understand that a lot of AI projects are happening from here. They might not have a lot of labels, because as you can imagine, big data can be used by a lot of different places. But that definitely would generate a lot of information and a lot of, let's just say, news. Also didn't mention that one of the co-founders of the OpenAI is Polish. So yeah, I mean, one of the things about Poles is that as much as I love them, they're very humble. So you wouldn't know. And that's one of the things that makes it very interesting. That by being new in town, you basically would just understand how many things are around, but just people don't really promote it properly.
And you mentioned about NLP. Sorry, I said it's going to be the last question, but I'm interested in this topic.
It's a
actually.
Steve Jobs thing, and one last thing.
Yeah, so that's another last one.
Yes.
What about the NLP marketing one? Because I didn't know it's actually like going on something with that here.
Yes. Most of the algorithms you see with the voice recognition and this kind of stuff, if not Polish, somehow has some Polish patent in it.
Okay.
And as I told you, a lot of the stuff are Polish, but they are totally, I'm going to say it in a different way. If you have a British company, it will provide more money to you. The moment that company is going to somehow have a Polish branding on it, sometimes the final price is going to go down, or people are not going to trust it as much. It's a very sad thing, but it's the truth. And because of that, you see a lot of Polish companies somehow become Americanized or become British, just because this way they have a better global branding. And especially when we're talking about like voice assistant, if Alexa or Google Assistant is being run by an algorithm being run out of like Polytechnica, like a Warsaw University, you never know the patent by which part. But if you would be very much interested into being a part of the scientific community, you would always meet those people. Because I was speaking at many conferences, and like one of the funny things that a lot of people say is like, what is the biggest innovation in the startups? And I was like, are we talking about innovation or startups? Because a lot of innovations are happening at universities. And one unfortunate or fortunate indicator for universities is that they are academic. They are not good with branding, they're not good with commercialization. They're only good with putting the idea out, and then somebody have to use it. And because of that, they make innovation, they don't make that much a splash. One other thing I did, and I'm also very happy that I was a very small part of it, was about this whole Fintech situation in Poland. And that was the whole idea, but this was by Financial Times, that main innovations in Fintech are happening from the banks in Poland, not even startups. Even though there are a lot of innovations from the Fintech sector in the startups, but you can see that how much Polish banks are seeing the future better than any other country, and how much people don't really appreciate it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I have a very, if you don't mind me, give you a funny anecdote. I am Iranian, just put it that way, but a lot of people outside of Poland think that I'm Polish. I was in Hungary, I was the only person from Poland there. The speaker before me was saying that Poland is one of the pioneers in the banking globally.
Okay.
And so people know me in the conference, and I was like looking at me, and I was like, thank you. And then I went on stage, I was the second speaker, and I was like, I really appreciate it, and I'm very surprised to hear that. The guy said that, no, you should be very proud. I was like, no, I was surprised because the only place you can hear that Poland is a pioneer in the banking system is outside of Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wish this would be changed. Because if you really take a look at banking system in the US, or I would say any other places, you would be surprised how much Polish banks are having, especially I'm talking about commercial banks, I'm not talking about investment banks, are having futuristic ideas, or let's just say some banks like mBank, they are fully digital.
Yeah.
I can't compare them with some digital banks in Switzerland, but I will say that the cost that you have as a customer, the freedom that you have, you can spend a fraction of a pennies with your credit card without a commission. Give me another country you can do that.
Yeah, that's
Poland
good,
is number 2 in the number of ATM and let's just say all these digital solutions right after Czech Republic. So these are the things that we have to be proud of, but unfortunately, as I mentioned, being humble, it's never enough.
We have to work on that in Poland.
I mean, it's only 30 years, so you have time. Yes.
Lovely, Ahmad. Thank you very much for the
was a
interview today.
pleasure.
It was really nice to see this whole a place here
Yeah, so
and speak to you. So
if you don't mind me also just to put it, so if you can really pronounce my last name, but I hope you will just put it. If you find me on, let's just say, all social media, I would be happy to help. As I mentioned, it's a part of it.
Cool.
And also for the Venture Cafe, as long as also you need any, let's just say, some sort of access to the innovation, this is the place to be. And for international expansion also, again, the same thing, the Startup Grind Warsaw. So you can connect me in any one of those places. I'm a very open person to,
Cool.
somehow, let's just say, bring all of the people who like innovation next to each other.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.